What if I told you that your greatest power lies in something you've done all your life but never consciously? What if I told you that the secret to changing your world is simply to feel it real? Twice. Welcome to a journey through the mind where I will teach you how to feel it twice using the Feel It Real Neville Goddard technique, with proof that your imagination is far more than fantasy. It's the fabric of reality itself. I remember the first time I truly tested the power of feeling. It wasn't in a church or a lecture hall. It was alone, in the quiet of my small apartment, when I had no money, no clear future, and no audience to applaud success. I had heard it said that if one could feel the wish fulfilled, reality would respond. But I needed more than theory. I needed proof. So I imagined something small, something almost silly to the rational mind. I saw myself receiving a letter from a friend I hadn't spoken to in years. I didn't just visualize it. I touched the paper in my mind. I smelled the ink. I laughed at the words. I felt it real, twice. First when I imagined the event, and second when I felt it again, just before sleep, sinking into that emotional state as though it had already happened. 3 days later, the letter arrived. That day, I understood that the law of assumption was not a metaphor. It was a mechanism. From that moment forward, I committed to discovering how to teach others to feel it twice and create their world from the inside out. Now let me show you how. Everything begins in the mind, but it is the feeling that gives it power. Thought without feeling is a dry seed, and no matter how many times it is cast upon the soil of the imagination, it cannot take root. The secret lies in this principle. You must feel your desire to be real, not tomorrow, not when the world allows it, but now. The present moment is the only creative center, and the only way to command it is through feeling. You are not called to merely visualize, to merely affirm, or to merely wish. You are called to feel it real, to so immerse yourself in the emotional reality of the desired state that your inner world transforms completely and the outer must follow. Feeling it real means stepping into the mood of the wish fulfilled. If you desire love, you must feel love. If you desire wealth, you must feel wealthy. If you desire freedom, you must feel free. There is no way around this law. It is not mechanical repetition that changes your state. It is emotional absorption. The question is not, do I want this, but can I feel this as true now? The world will always give you evidence of your previous assumptions, but it will just as surely reflect a new pattern when you dare to feel something new. It is important to understand that the world does not operate based on effort, but based on reflection. You do not manifest something by forcing it into existence. You manifest it by assuming its presence in your life and feeling the corresponding emotion as if it were already done. This is not about pretending. Pretending implies awareness that it is not real. But when you feel it real, you no longer question it. You dwell in it as the only truth that matters. Even if appearances contradict it, you return again and again to that inner mood, and eventually appearances must shift to align. This process is not one of logic, but of surrender. Logic argues based on evidence. Feeling creates based on acceptance. When you accept something in feeling, it becomes your dominant vibration, your inner identity, and it must express itself in form. To feel is to believe beyond what the senses report. The senses show you what was. Feeling reveals what can be. But only when you make it emotionally alive within can it be born in the without. Many will ask, but how do I feel something I've never had? And the answer is simple, though often ignored. Imagination is the bridge. If you can imagine it vividly enough, you can feel it. The two are connected. When the imagination is disciplined to construct a scene that implies your wish is fulfilled, and the heart surrenders to it emotionally, the feeling becomes as real as any memory. That is where transformation begins. You are not asking the world for permission. You are not waiting for signs. You are generating a new vibration of being from within. And that shift in being causes a shift in circumstance. The world will always appear neutral until you place meaning upon it. Your emotions are the colors through which the world is painted. If you feel lack, the world looks empty. If you feel abundance, the same world overflows. If you feel unloved, every face becomes a stranger. But if you feel love, even silence feels like an embrace. This is the power of emotional alchemy, and it is the core of creation. Change how you feel, and you change what the world shows you. Now consider for a moment the subtle difference between desire and fulfillment. Desire says, I want this. Fulfillment says, it is done. The gap between those two is not bridged by time or by effort. It is bridged by feeling. When you can feel your desire fulfilled, you cancel the vibration of longing. You stop sending out the message that it is missing. Instead, you begin living from the end. And when you live from the end, the means will arrange themselves. You do not need to know how. The how is never your concern. Your only task is to feel it real, fully, deeply, repeatedly, until it becomes the most natural thing in the world. Some will resist this teaching because it seems too simple. They want complexity. They want rituals, conditions, guarantees. But truth has always been simple. And the truth is this: the world is yourself pushed out. It mirrors back to you not what you wish, not what you pray for, but what you feel to be true. If you do not like what the world is showing you, do not argue with it. Change your feeling. Move into a new mood. Embody a new self. Everything outside will adjust to the new identity. There is nothing more revolutionary than this: to take full responsibility for your emotional atmosphere. No longer the victim of circumstance, you become the master of it. You hold the key, not in what you do, but in what you feel. And the feeling that you dwell in most consistently will sculpt your destiny. So do not wait for signs. Do not chase evidence. Simply withdraw into yourself and construct a scene that implies your desire is fulfilled. Feel it, live in it, breathe in it. Let it become so vivid, so absorbing, that you forget for a moment where you are. When you open your eyes, the seed will be planted. And just as surely as a flower grows toward the light, your world will begin bending toward the reality you have felt into being. To feel a thing real is not an intellectual act. It is not enough to know the principle or recite the words. You must become it in feeling. You must cross the boundary between concept and embodiment. Knowledge alone is a shadow. It is only when knowledge is infused with emotion that it becomes living truth. And so the process of creation begins with a very deliberate act, not of thinking, but of feeling, from the state of the wish fulfilled. Begin not by asking, what do I want, but by dwelling on the answer to this question: what would I feel if I already had it? This is the doorway. For every desire, there is a corresponding emotional state, a vibrational signature. When you align with that emotional state, you align with the fulfillment of that desire. But this alignment is not mechanical. It must be chosen again and again, not with force, but with intention and inner quietness. The external world will tell you that you are foolish, that your imagination is a dream. But the soul knows that imagination is the source of reality, not the escape from it. Construct a scene in your mind that implies your desire has been fulfilled. Do not choose a long story, but a short, vivid impression, a single touch, a spoken word, a loving embrace. The simpler it is, the easier it is to saturate with feeling. The mind will try to complicate it, to add detail where none is needed. But the heart knows. What matters is not the form, but the feeling. If the scene implies the fulfillment, it is enough. Let the scene loop gently within you. Let it become more than a mental picture. Let it become an emotional experience. As you repeat it inwardly, allow yourself to enter the mood. If it is a scene of reunion, feel the joy. If it is a scene of accomplishment, feel the relief. If it is a scene of love, feel the warmth. Make it alive. Do not try to act it out externally. Do not move your body. The movement must happen inside. The emotion must rise within you, as though the thing were truly happening now. There is a great difference between saying it will happen and it is happening. The former is always just beyond your reach. The latter makes the unseen present. This is the key to bypassing resistance. When you say it is done, you no longer wait. You no longer ask. You no longer beg. You receive it inwardly and respond emotionally as though it were yours. The subconscious cannot tell the difference between an imagined state intensely felt and a physical state experienced. It accepts the inner reality and begins to express it through the outer world. When you practice this, do not concern yourself with the results. The results are inevitable. Your only concern is the feeling, the emotion, the inner movement. Make the experience as real inwardly as possible. And when doubts come, and they will, you do not argue with them, you do not fight them, you simply return to the scene. You return to the feeling, you return to the state, because that state is the cause of everything. Every condition in your life is an effect of your previously accepted states. If you want to change the effects, change the cause. And the cause is always internal. Do not look to your senses for confirmation. They will lie to you. They will echo your former states. They are the photograph of the past, not the window to the future. You must persist in the unseen long enough for the scene to rearrange itself. You are not violating natural law. You are applying it correctly. The law does not respond to pleading. It responds to certainty. And certainty is born of repeated feeling. Make this practice a part of your life, not once, not when it's convenient, but daily, nightly, especially before sleep. As you drift off, allow the scene to play softly in your mind. Let it soothe you. Let it comfort you. Let it replace the worries of the day. Enter into sleep from the fulfilled state, not the desiring one. For the state in which you sleep is the state most deeply impressed, and what is impressed must be expressed. You will know when you have succeeded, not because something appears immediately, but because your reaction to the world changes. You will respond from a new place. You will feel the desire as already completed and no longer chase it. The chasing ends because the having has begun. This is the only true measure of alignment. The peace that comes from emotional completion, the stillness that comes from inward possession. And when the world begins to echo the new feeling, do not be surprised. Do not call it coincidence. Call it what it is. The harvest of the seed planted in consciousness. You sowed it with emotion. You fed it with faith. You watered it with repetition. Now it has grown and it must bear fruit. So to feel it real is not merely to visualize. It is not to affirm with empty words. It is to live from the emotional reality of your desire now here, within. The world outside will follow. It must. It has no choice. Because the one who feels it real holds the blueprint of creation in their own being. They are the cause, and the world is the obedient effect. To feel something real once is to begin the movement. To feel it real twice is to establish it in the subconscious. The repetition is not mechanical, nor is it habit for habit's sake. It is creative rhythm. The first impression plants the seed, but it is in the second impression, the deliberate re-entry into the same feeling, that the roots begin to take hold. One could hear a piece of music and be moved, but it is not until it is heard again and again, felt again and again, that it becomes a part of the listener. So it is with the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You must feel it, then feel it again, and each time with more conviction, more immersion, more inner surrender to the state. Feeling it twice is not about timing, nor does it require ceremony. It is about absorption. You feel it first when you imagine the scene, the moment, the gesture that implies your desire is already yours. You live it inwardly. You create the mood. You see the detail. You generate the emotion. But you do not stop there. For the conscious mind is slippery, and it often forgets, it questions, it wavers. So you return again, not because you doubt, but because you are anchoring the reality deeper into being. You feel it again. And with a second immersion, you begin to believe it more naturally. The repetition is not done with strain. It is not forced. It is not urgent. It is done with ease, with quiet intensity. You move back into the scene as one would revisit a fond memory, not to analyze it, but to dwell in the joy of it. And this is how the state becomes natural. You train the emotional body to accept this new reality not once, but consistently, until it becomes your automatic response to the world. It is a sacred act to feel something into reality, not by effort, but by alignment. There is no striving. There is no struggle. You are not trying to convince the world. You are not performing for outer validation. You are communing with the deeper self, the one who creates silently and powerfully beneath the surface. And the deeper self does not respond to noise. It responds to sustained emotion. There is a rhythm to manifestation that the intellect does not understand. The conscious mind wants instant evidence. It wants proof before belief. But the spiritual law works in reverse. It demands belief before proof. And that belief is established through repeated feeling. This is why it must be felt twice, not just once in a moment of hope, but again in a moment of certainty. It is in this second immersion that the desire moves from possibility to inevitability. It is no longer something you are reaching for. It becomes something you are living from. You may do this just before sleep. You may do it in the quiet of the morning. You may do it when the world becomes loud and tries to distract you from your chosen state. But every time you feel it again, you are impressing the subconscious further. And the subconscious does not argue. It does not analyze. It accepts and expresses. So you are not repeating for the sake of repetition. You are repeating for the sake of transformation. When you feel it again, do not try to replicate the first experience exactly. Let it evolve, let it deepen, let it become more real. You might notice more details. You might feel more emotion. You might find that your body responds with sensations as though it is actually occurring. That is a sign that the impression is taking hold. That is when you know you are crossing the boundary between imagination and creation. Feeling it twice also builds resilience. When the senses try to tell you otherwise, when the bank account is empty, when the relationship is absent, when the opportunity seems distant, you return to your inner world. You re-enter the state. You feel it again. And with each return, the outer condition begins to lose its grip on your attention. You stop reacting to appearances and start living from assumption. This is freedom. This is power. This is mastery of self. Do not think this is about pretending. Pretending is hollow. It contains doubt beneath its surface. But feeling it real twice is embodiment. It is claiming the reality inwardly until the outer world has no choice but to reflect it. And it will. It always does. Every condition in your life today is the result of a previously assumed feeling, conscious or unconscious. So if you want to change the condition, you must assume a new feeling, but once. But until it is natural, until it becomes your second nature, there is no need to force the outer. The outer is the echo. You must only master the inner sound, the inner tone, the inner song. When that is pure, the echo will be clear. It may take hours, it may take days, it may take weeks, but it will happen. Because sustained feeling always finds form. So return to the scene, return to the feeling, return to the assumption, not because you lack, but because you are building. And what you build in the unseen, you will one day walk through in the seen. The world bends to the inner mood of the man who dares to feel it real. Not once, but again, and again, and again. There is no greater technique than the art of inner assumption. But to the untrained mind, this may seem too simple to be true. The mind, conditioned by effort, struggle, and external cause and effect, rebels at the idea that feeling alone, deep, conscious feeling, could mold and move the substance of reality. Yet that is precisely how creation operates. The technique is not a system of outer doing, but of inward being. You do not need incense or rituals, nor must you wait for perfect conditions. All that is required is the focused direction of your imagination and the deliberate acceptance of what you choose to be true. To begin, withdraw your attention from what the senses report. The senses are echoes of old beliefs, and to stay bound to them is to remain imprisoned in your past assumptions. Turn instead to the world within, where the true act of creation begins. Enter into a state of stillness, not of body alone, but of mind. This stillness is fertile. It is the womb of manifestation. In this silent space, construct a short scene, one that implies the fulfillment of your desire. Do not be vague. Do not imagine the process. Imagine the result. See yourself already in possession of that which you desire, not as a distant hope, but as a current reality. The scene must be compact, easily repeatable. A single sentence spoken in celebration, a congratulatory handshake, a joyful embrace, a bank statement held in your hand, a ring on your finger, a door opening to your new home. These are not fantasies, they are seeds of reality. The mind must be given something simple enough to feel. If it is too complex, you will observe it instead of inhabit it. And the technique only works when you become the actor, not the audience. The feeling must be personal. It must belong to you. Once the scene is selected, enter into it. Do not look at it from the outside. Live it from within. Hear the sounds, feel the textures, taste the air. Most of all, feel the emotion. What would it feel like if this were true? Let that question guide you. Not how can it happen, but how would I feel if it were already done? That feeling is the bridge. That emotion is the invitation you send to the subconscious. And the subconscious always accepts what is felt to be real. The repetition of the scene is crucial, but it is not the number of repetitions that matters. It is the intensity of the emotion experience. One deeply felt moment of inner reality is more powerful than 1,000 mechanical affirmations. You are not impressing the subconscious through language. You are impressing it through emotional resonance. It hears the language of feeling, not words. So as you replay the scene, let the emotion become more vivid, more alive. Smile if you must. Weep if it moves you. Let your inner being absorb the sensation of the event as though it were happening in the flesh. Many seek to understand the technique intellectually but resist the act of surrendering to the feeling. But creation does not respond to analysis. It responds to acceptance. You must let go of the need to control and instead rest in the knowing that what you feel consistently, you will live. This is not superstition. It is not magic. It is law. The world is shaped by the inner states we embody. And when you persist in the assumption of the wish fulfilled, all forces rearrange to bring it into being. Before sleep is the most powerful time to practice this technique. As the body begins to relax and the conscious mind fades, the gate to the subconscious opens wide. This is the moment to plant the seed. Do not carry the burdens of the day into slumber. Instead, carry the feeling of the fulfilled desire. Let the final thought before sleep be your imagined scene. Let the final sensation be that of possession, of joy, of peace. Sleep in the state of the answered prayer, and you will awaken in a world that must, by law, move to match it. But even in waking hours, this technique can be practiced in flashes. A moment of inward vision while walking, a breath of emotional immersion between conversations, a pause during the day where you close your eyes and re-enter the state. You need not explain this to anyone. It is your sacred art, invisible to the world, but transformative in its power. For every moment you return to the state of the fulfilled desire, you are watering the seed. You are strengthening the pattern. You are claiming again and again that this is who you are. Do not concern yourself with signs. They will come. Do not worry about the means. It will appear. Your only duty is the state, and the state is controlled by one tool alone, feeling. To feel it real is the technique, the method, the way. No greater secret exists. For as you feel, so shall you be. And as you become, so must the world yield. There will always come a point when the mind, conditioned by years of relying upon the senses, asks for proof. It says, show me, and I will believe. But the law does not operate on that arrangement. The law functions in reverse. Believe, and it will be shown to you. For all evidence must come after the assumption. The outer world cannot produce the proof before the feeling is accepted within. This is the test of faith, not blind belief, but a knowing rooted in personal inner experience. The law of assumption does not beg to be proven by outer logic. It reveals its proof through the reflection of life itself. Every event you encounter, every relationship you experience, every dollar that enters your hand is a demonstration of your inner state. If one wants proof of the law of assumption, one need only look at the world he presently occupies. It is the record of previously sustained assumptions. There is no mystery here. It is precise, mathematical. What you accept as true becomes your experience, not because it is true in any objective sense, but because you have embodied it as real in consciousness. This is why one man may walk through life surrounded by abundance, while another, with equal skill, knows only lack. They are not victims of fate, they are creators of fate, each according to the assumptions they hold. The proof is always there, but it cannot be seen until the eyes of the inner man awaken. One must begin to correlate the inner cause with the outer effect. Did you not dwell on that worry before it came? Did you not carry that silent complaint before it echoed in the world? And likewise, was there not a time when you felt quietly certain about something, and it arrived without struggle? These are not coincidences. These are confirmations. The law is always operating. It cannot be turned off. The only question is whether it is being used consciously or unconsciously. To demonstrate this for oneself, the process is simple. Select a desire, something sincere, something that matters to you. Enter into a state where it is already fulfilled. Assume its reality, not with anxious repetition, but with quiet confidence. You do not repeat the scene to convince yourself, but to absorb yourself in it. You enter into the emotional state of the wish fulfilled and dwell there. And then, with no outward effort, life begins to shift. Circumstances align, people appear, the path reveals itself. It may not happen in the way the intellect expects, but it will happen in accordance with the feeling you maintain. You will know the law works when what once seemed distant becomes natural, when the desire no longer feels foreign but familiar. That is when the bridge of incidents begins. Events will unfold, not always dramatically, but with perfect timing, to carry you from your present state to the one you have assumed. And when it arrives, it will feel inevitable, not surprising, but expected. This is the subtle beauty of the law. It does not impose, it reflects. But do not expect the outer world to confirm your assumption immediately. There is often a period when nothing appears to change. This is the testing ground. It is here the impatient abandon the state and call the law false. But the faithful persist. They feel it again, they sleep in it, they live from it. And in time the proof emerges, not because they waited, but because they never left the feeling. The subconscious, once impressed, must express. Consider this. If your dream can stir emotion in your body, then your body is already being affected by the invisible. If your mind can replay a scene and cause your heart to race, your stomach to flutter, your eyes to well with tears, then you have proof that imagination governs reality. It is not a matter of belief. It is a matter of use. You are using the law every moment of every day. The only question is, what are you assuming? To further prove this law, test it with the small and the simple. Imagine receiving a text message from a friend. Imagine finding a feather, seeing a specific phrase, or being complimented on something unusual. Feel the joy, the amusement, the gratitude, as though it already happened. Then release it, let it go. Do not watch the clock, do not question the method, simply observe. You will find, often in the most unexpected ways, that the outer begins to mirror the inner. Once this proof is received, and it always is to the persistent, your confidence grows. No longer do you need to be persuaded, no longer do you seek signs. You become the cause. You become calm in the knowing that every future is already written in the state you now occupy. If you do not like your life, do not battle it. Change the assumption. Step into the new identity. Feel it real, not once but repeatedly, and the law will confirm what you have assumed. This is the only way the world works. And it works perfectly. To assume is to create. There is no difference between assuming the wish, fulfilled, and the process of becoming it. Every assumption, if persisted in, must externalize. Not because there is magic in the sky, but because consciousness is always objectifying itself. Whatever you accept inwardly as true, the world must reflect. This is not a philosophy, it is a law. But to use it deliberately, you must understand that assumption is more than a passing thought. It is more than desire, it is embodiment, it is identity. You are not pretending to be, you are accepting that you are. You begin with the recognition that desire is only the voice of possibility calling you higher. You would not long for something unless it already existed. Desire itself is the evidence of supply. So instead of treating desire as something to be attained, you treat it as something to be entered. And the way you enter is through assumption. You ask not how do I get it, but what would I be like if it were already mine? The answer to that question is your new self. That is the version of you that must now be assumed. The assumption is done in silence. It is done in imagination. It is not announced to the world, nor is it debated with logic. The intellect may resist it, but the feeling will accept it. And the moment it is accepted in feeling, it begins to live. This inner act is the cause of all outer change. You are not instructed to force, to beg, or to plead. You are instructed to assume. And to assume means to occupy the state with such conviction that no contradiction can unsettle you. You do not wait for the world to change. You change the world by assuming that the change has already occurred. If you want health, you assume the feeling of wellness. If you want love, you assume the feeling of being cherished. If you want success, you assume the feeling of accomplishment. This is not done to deceive yourself, but to align yourself with the state in which your desire is natural. The emotional tone belongs to a world. And when you embody the tone, the world that matches it must appear. Assume the wish fulfilled by going there in your imagination. Construct a scene that implies you are already what you desire to be. But more importantly, feel that it is true. Let the body respond. Let the breath change. Let the mind surrender. And when doubt arises, as it always does, you do not resist it. You do not fight it. You return gently to the assumption over and over again until the inner mood becomes more familiar than the old one. The repetition is not about force. It is about naturalization. You are teaching the subconscious a new truth, and the subconscious always expresses what it accepts. One of the greatest secrets is to persist in the assumption even when nothing seems to happen. The outer world will often test your resolve. It will offer you evidence of your past beliefs. But if you continue to live inwardly from the new assumption, those old reflections must fade. They are echoes, they are shadows, and shadows vanish in the light of a new state. You do not argue with them. You do not ask when. You remain in the end. You remain in the feeling of the fulfilled wish. The state you assume determines the experiences that follow. You cannot assume lack and experience abundance. You cannot assume loneliness and experience union. Life must echo your identity. So you ask, what would I feel if I were now the man or woman I long to be? And you live from that feeling, not toward it, from it. You walk as though it were true. You think from it. You sleep in it. On the bridge of incidents, the path you never could have planned unfolds to bring you face to face with your assumption in form. This is the art of inner causation, and requires no one's permission but your own. You do not need the world to approve. You need only to believe in the unseen until it becomes seen. You must remain loyal to the state of being you have chosen, even when all else denies it. For loyalty to the invisible is the measure of faith, and the world is always shaped by faith, whether conscious or unconscious. Assuming the wish fulfilled is not an act of arrogance. It is an act of creation. You are not saying, I will be. You are saying, I am. And in that moment, everything begins to respond. You will meet people you never expected. You will be offered chances you did not plan. But these are not accidents. They are results. They are the forms shaped by your assumption. So you see, to assume the wish fulfilled is to step into a new world without ever moving your feet. It is to carry a new vibration within, knowing that life is not happening to you, but unfolding from you. The outer follows the inner. Always, without exception. And when the inner is changed by assumption, the outer becomes its mirror. To live from the end is to dwell in the unseen as though it were already seen. It is to act, think, feel, and breathe from the place of the wish fulfilled. This is not fantasy. It is discipline. This is not denial of fact. It is the recognition that facts are shadows and you are the light that casts them. You do not wait for the world to permit your transformation. You enter into the state of your desire and live there first, knowing the outer will follow because it must. You become the thing desired, not by acquisition, but by embodiment. And embodiment begins within. Living from the end means your mind no longer asks, will it come? But responds, it is here. The moment you stop chasing and begin inhabiting, the nature of your reality begins to transform. To live from the end is to move into a new state of consciousness and claim it as your dwelling place. You no longer consult the senses to tell you who you are. You no longer ask others to reflect your worth. You define yourself by your assumption, and the world becomes the mirror to that inner image. You do not visit the end in imagination occasionally. You live there mentally, emotionally, spiritually. If you desire healing, you no longer entertain the idea of sickness. You feel from wellness. You breathe from ease. You move as one who is restored. If you desire union, you no longer ask where or when love will arrive. You feel from the warmth of shared presence. You live with the tone of partnership already within. This is not play acting. This is creative law. The end is the cause, and the cause shapes the sequence of events that follow. When you live from the end, you abandon effort, not action, but struggle. You are no longer acting to make something happen. You are acting because something has already happened. You are not waiting for confirmation. You are the confirmation. You are not reacting to circumstance. You are causing it. You are the source, not the echo. The power to change the world lies not in rearranging the external, but in accepting a new internal state and living from it as if it were the only reality that exists. To truly live from the end, one must become indifferent to appearances, not careless, but clear. Clear that the outer world is old news. Clear that the report of the senses is not the decree of truth. The senses only show you the past, what you previously assumed and felt to be real. If you want something new, you must feel something new. And that new feeling must become your dwelling place, your resting place, your spiritual home. Living from the end also redefines time. You are no longer linear. You are no longer becoming. The moment you claim the end, the bridge to that end begins to form. And though it may appear invisible, it is certain. You may not know how. You may not predict when. But you are no longer interested in those questions. You are interested only in staying in the state because you now know the state is the cause. You may find that the world resists you at first. The old reflections may scream for your attention. Old friends may question you. Circumstances may appear unchanged. But your job is not to persuade them. Your task is to remain faithful to the end. If you persist, the shadows must rearrange. They have no life of their own. They are formed and reformed by your inner state. When the world does begin to shift, and it always does, you will not be surprised. You will feel a quiet knowing, this is the echo of my assumption. This is the harvest of my inner cultivation. This is the form of what I accepted long ago in silence. And the joy will be not just in receiving, but in remembering that it came from you, that it was born in you, that nothing came from without. All came from within. To live from the end is not to walk blindly. It is to walk boldly. It is to carry a secret world within and to treasure it more than the evidence of the senses. It is to know that the end is not somewhere to get to, but something to live from. You may find yourself smiling at moments that others would call ordinary because you are hearing a different song, seeing a different landscape, living from a different timeline, one where your prayer has already been answered, one where your desire is already fulfilled, one where the future has already bowed to your inner decree. Remain in the end, rest in the end, return to it each night before sleep, rise into it each morning before the world speaks. Let it saturate your mind, your speech, your walk. Let it be your atmosphere, not as a visitor, but as a resident. And soon the outer world will rise to meet you there, because that is how the law responds. not to your words, not to your wishes, but to the state you dwell in consistently. To live from the end is to create from the highest cause, and to watch all things come into alignment, not by effort, but by embodiment. Everything you see, everything you touch, everything you experience externally is born from a single source, your consciousness. There is no outer world independent of your perception of it. There is only the world as you are conscious of it being. You may believe that things happen to you, that you are reacting to life as it unfolds before you, but in truth, life is unfolding from within you. What you believe yourself to be, what you accept as true without question, that is what you encounter as fact. The world has no existence apart from your mind's acceptance of it. You must come to see that consciousness is not a product of the body, nor is it confined to the skull. It is the vast field in which the body itself appears. The body is experienced within awareness, not the other way around. And because consciousness is the root of all expression, it means that you are never at the mercy of events. You are the source of them. You are not a spectator. You are the projector. The screen of life reflects your internal film, scene by scene, moment by moment, drawn with precision from the state you occupy in consciousness. If you find yourself repeating the same undesirable patterns, whether in relationships, finances, health, or opportunity, it is not because life is unkind or random. It is because the state of consciousness has not changed. You may have altered your actions, your habits, even your surroundings, but if you have not changed the deep feeling of who you are, you will only dress the same story in new clothing. The actors may change, the location may shift, but the core experience will return until you assume a new state of being. The world is not moved by effort, it is moved by state. And your state is determined by the consciousness you inhabit. If you live from lack, you will always see proof of not having enough. If you live from love, the world will become affectionate toward you. If you live from fear, you will walk into shadows at every turn. But none of these conditions are fixed. They are malleable. They change the moment you change your conception of self. This is why you are told to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, not as a game, not as a moment of escape, but as an act of recognition. For that which you assume to be true in consciousness becomes true in experience. You do not need to force the external world to behave. You need only to dwell in the feeling that what you desire is already so. If you persist in that state, the world will bend to mirror it, not by your command, but by law. The law of consciousness is impartial and exact. What you are conscious of being is what your world will reveal. There are no exceptions to this law. It operates whether you are aware of it or not. Most people live reactively, letting external conditions determine how they feel. But to live deliberately is to reverse the flow. It is to feel first and allow the outer to align. This is not wishful thinking. It is structural thinking. It is the reordering of your inner architecture to match the world you desire to see. There is no power outside of consciousness. Everything from the smallest detail to the grandest event arises from the activity of your inner life. When you accept this, you stop giving energy to blame, to complain, to delay. You withdraw your power from the outer and reclaim it inwardly. You begin to speak not of what is missing, but of what is already yours in the unseen. And the moment you claim it there, you plant the seed for its expression here. Every prayer is answered at the moment it is felt as real, not when it is uttered with the lips, but when it is accepted with the heart. That feeling is a shift in consciousness, and consciousness always creates. You may not see immediate change, but the change begins the instant the feeling is embodied. The outer will respond in its own season, with its own instruments, but it will respond faithfully to the state you have chosen. You must learn to identify not with what you observe, but with the one who observes it. You must remember that no fact has any power unless you give it your belief. The world takes shape from the mold of your convictions. So shape your convictions wisely. Begin each day by deciding who you are, not by looking in the mirror, but by looking within. Choose the state you will live from. Choose the feeling you will carry, and refuse to entertain anything that contradicts it. When you claim a new consciousness, everything begins to reorganize. Old patterns dissolve. New opportunities appear. People and events respond in ways you never could have planned. But this is not coincidence, it is correspondence. The world corresponds to the tone you set within. You are not changing what exists. You are moving into the version of reality that matches who you are being. And when you truly realize that consciousness is the only reality, you will cease to argue with appearances. You will no longer try to fix the mirror. You will instead change the face you show to it. You are the operant power. The world you see is nothing more than the reflection of what you have accepted as true. Change your assumption, and the reflection must change. Not because you are manipulating matter, but because you are reconditioning consciousness. And in that sacred act, you will discover that the only world that ever truly mattered was the one you chose to believe in. You have heard it now not once, but many times. Creation does not begin on the outside, it begins within. You do not change your life by manipulating conditions. You change your life by changing the state from which you operate. You assume, you feel, and you live from the end, not as a strategy, but as a law. Not because it sounds beautiful, but because it is the only way anything has ever been created. All that you now experience, you once imagined, consciously or unconsciously, and felt to be true. If you will remember nothing else, remember this. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is the secret. Not the effort, not the repetition, not the seeking of signs, but the inner act of accepting your desire as present and real now. That acceptance, when felt, becomes the blueprint, and the world around you, like obedient clay, begins to form itself around that invisible pattern. You do not need to beg. You do not need to struggle. You need only to become inwardly what you seek outwardly. Every assumption, if sustained, will harden into fact. And once you fully realize that consciousness is the only reality, you will understand that all things are possible, not in the future, but here. In this moment of awakened awareness, there is no power outside of you, no one to grant or deny your good. There is only the state you are willing to enter and the conviction with which you dwell in it. That which you dare to feel as real becomes real. So feel it. Feel it deeply. Feel it twice. And continue to feel it until it becomes the most natural thing in the world. Then watch without strain as the world changes, not because you forced it, but because you finally became it. You are not hoping. You are not waiting. You are not wishing. You are assuming. And that makes all the difference.